Thrilled to welcome Michael Webster for this talk. We're going to draw on his 63 years of teaching, and he's going to share with us some resources he's working on, a new book. And we're very excited that the Pedagogy Committee is working with the board and ICA to release some of his articles that he's written over the many years he's contributed to the ICA Journal. And we asked Michael to select a collection of those articles, and he is going to make some videos to go along with those. So it's very exciting to have this resource. If you haven't joined the ICA, please consider joining ICA and being able to access all these wonderful resources. So jumping in, Michael would like to invite the audience to choose some topics. So I'm going to share that and turn things over to Michael.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I started teaching in the fall of 1962. I was a freshman at Eastman, and someone knocked on my door on a Saturday morning, and, "Your name Webster?" "Yes." "You play the clarinet?" "Yes." My roommate's hungover and can't go teach this morning. Can you sub for him?" "Yes." And I went and taught, and at the end of the day, the director said, "Are you coming back?" I said, "Am I?" And he said, "Yes." And so I've been teaching ever since then. And what I've done today is to select 5 potential topics of discussion. I want this to be a discussion more than just a lecture. And I'd like you, our audience, to choose which topics interest you the most. I don't expect to get to all 5. I don't want to get to all 5, but we might get to, let's say, 2 of them, and then have an interactive discussion where I can tell you a few things that I'm interested about relative to that topic, and then you can ask questions or make comments. So here they are. Julianne, do you want to put them to a vote?
Absolutely. So we have, I'm going to pull away so I can see our audience here. I already see a vote for articulation. So our topics are holding the clarinet, cheek to cheek, articulation, flashy fingers flambe, and partials to partials. So if we can see some hands, or you can throw it in the chat, who would like to hear about holding the clarinet? How about cheek to cheek? Articulation, we have 2 votes for articulation. Flashy fingers flambe, we have some votes for that. And partials to partials. All right. Partials to partials. So we have votes for the last 3 topics, Michael: articulation, flashy fingers flambe, and partials to partials. So if you have a question along the way, feel free to throw your hand up, and then when we have a pause, I can call on you and you can ask your question through. He would like you to ask them verbally rather than the chat, so we will do that. Michael, which one would you like to begin with?
Well, let's do in the order that you mentioned. We'll start with articulation.
Great. Fine. There we go.
And I came up with this word to emphasize the importance of, let's say, putting the tongue here and the air there. So the air does something, the tongue does something. Sometimes they do it separately, and sometimes they do it together. And so I'd like to go, Julianne, to page 77.
Okay.
The introduction to tongue, which is...
There we are, 70. Sorry, it's taking me a moment to get there.
That's all right.
And then I've got to find, I'm going to share.
And Julianne's going to share the screen of these samples from my teaching method. There it is, the tongue. So up until this point, the way I teach, I like to emphasize a legato approach. So before they learn how to tongue, they've been learning how to play, and also, and they have they have learned how to sustain their air, how to just blow steadily. Then I like to introduce the tongue not as starting the tone, but as interrupting the column of air. So if you look at, can you scroll back up to, we've got staccato there. I want to get one more page.
There we go.
There we go. So starting with that air column that they have already learned how to do, then we're going to tell them to keep blowing steadily and to very, very lightly touch the tip of their tongue to the tip of the reed to stop the sound, and then to release the tongue to start the sound again. And it sounds like this. Of course, at that tempo, to stop the tone with your tongue sounds rather abrupt and rather dry. But it's very important to learn how to stop the tone with the tongue when you learn how to play staccato a little bit later. Then the next thing I do is to teach what I call tenuto style tonguing, which is simply interrupting the airstream. When the tongue goes to the reed, but it sort of bounces back off the reed, doesn't stay there long, and the tone is as long as it possibly can be. And there you have the first way of tonguing. I like teaching tenuto tongue before I teach staccato tongue. And then let's go to the Skater's Waltz. I think it might be the next page. Yeah, down toward the bottom. On this page there are some examples of simple tunes where the tongue simply does a repeated note. You're not moving your finger and your tongue at the same time, but it's just the same. You start the air, and in the middle you do a tenuto style tongue. Here's the Skater's Waltz. And then on the next page, I think it's the very next page, down at the bottom. Oh, there are some Stravinsky examples. One of the ideas is to get the students to hear music by the great composers. But I wanted to choose I Gave My Love a Cherry, a traditional folk song, because it starts with a sequence of repeated notes. So at the moment, we are using the tongue to play repeated notes. And then on the second bar of I Gave My Love a Cherry, we actually move the finger and tongue together. And that's a very simple coordination to do in this context. And now I'd like to, before we go to staccato, I'd like to go to dynamics. We're going to talk about what to do with the air. And this would be page 91 for you, Julianne. '91 on the left, which would be 87, there it is in the book. Okay, so very soon in the game, we want to have our students learn how to use their air. I often say, and I often repeat, that playing a musical instrument is a physical skill. You need to learn how to do it physically. You can't just say to yourself, well, I want to be expressive, therefore I'll be expressive. You have to learn the physicality of expression. And expression on the clarinet comes mostly from the air, but a little bit from the tongue with articulating various notes. So here we have a page of long tones. Everyone loves their long tones in different dynamics. Mezzo forte. Pianissimo. And then changing the volume through crescendo and diminuendo. here's a big crescendo from pianissimo to fortissimo. And by this time, you want to start teaching the student that when they're playing softly, they open up their embouchure just a little bit so that they don't squash the reed against the mouthpiece, and that helps to keep the pitch down. And then as you crescendo, you firm in the corners and make sure that the pitch stays up as you get louder. I do not recommend using a tuner for this page because it's almost impossible for a beginner to be perfect with their tuner, and sometimes it's difficult for even a seasoned professional to do that. So I'm starting pianissimo and keeping the embouchure open, and then crescendoing and adding firmness in the corners of the embouchure as I get louder. And then down at the bottom, how you would incorporate this into a simple musical phrase. And then I'd like to ask Leon to join me so that we demonstrate some dynamics in a simple piece of music that is nevertheless very beautiful and very expressive. This is called Asa's Death from Peer Gynt by Grieg, and it's page 67 in the book, 71 on your left side for Julianne. There, you got it immediately. And not every clarinetist has a resident gardener, laundress, and keyboard artist. And I have one in the person of my wife, Leon Bicey, who's a well-known flutist and flute teacher, but who also is a very good keyboard player. She actually accompanied Rampal's master classes when she was a flute student, and she accompanied other students on the piano. So she has, at the last minute, I cajoled her into playing a couple of pieces with me because these are quite beautiful, and throughout my teaching method I supply keyboard parts that can be used to accompany the students so they get a feeling for harmony. I need to move my little chair back just a tiny bit.
Okay.
So here's The Death of Asa by Edvard Grieg. Notice that it's all slurred except for tonguing the beginning of the first note of each phrase, but it's definitely a legato study, but mostly it's a study in dynamics and emotion and how the emotion comes from the breath. Here we go.
This is
Yeah.
the air conditioning came back on, so things are falling off. I'm so sorry. I have to get something to hold on to this page. It is flying away.
I turned the AC off, and
This is Houston, folks.
I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
Okay. I've got these secured in case it won't go off right away.
We also can't use the ceiling fan when we're playing the clarinet because it makes the tone wobble even more than when I feel nervous. So here we go. The Death of Asa. And I would like to encourage our audience at any point to raise your hand and ask a question, because I'd be happy to get some feedback from y'all, as we say here in Houston.
See,
Okay.
Shannon's got her hand up. Go ahead.
You'll have to unmute yourself.
Oh, I did that and then I muted myself right after that. Okay, great. Okay. First of all, just a comment because I was laughing a lot. It was really cute, but I have never heard of all the things that Leon Bicey is known for, laundress. Okay. So that,
The
okay.
reason is, Shannon, that quite a few years ago, I did the laundry and I shrunk one of her favorite shirts.
Yes.
And since that time, she has never let me go near the laundry.
Yes, that's why I have my husband do his own laundry. But anyway, moving on. Uh, okay, couple questions that are unrelated. But the first one is you were talking about the firmness in the corners of the embouchure as you get louder, which I think, of course, is very important. And conversely, as you get softer, some looseness in the embouchure. How do you teach that without students using their buccinators and pulling back? How would you generally say that? Um, yeah,
Okay,
let
this
me
is
let.
this
Mhm.
is a segue into one of our other topics, which we're not going to address, and that's cheek to cheek, which has to do with
Ah,
embouchure. Now, one discovery that I made years ago, which is maybe not apparent because it's so natural, is that when you play low E and low F on the clarinet, you actually open up your embouchure without even thinking about it. And you can do this experiment with some other clarinets. You have them blow and you finger, and then you go down an octave. And if they don't open up their embouchure, it sounds like this. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you really need to open up. So starting from that low E, getting the best quality of sound that you can, the embouchure is more open. We try to keep that openness, but it can't stay that open all the way up the clarinet. So we add, I'm going to use the word pressure, from the corners of the mouth. And I believe that the best way to start an embouchure is in two parts. The first part being to firm up the lips. And in order to do that, you actually do a sort of a smile, but you make sure that you don't roll your lower lip over the teeth, but rather keep it in front of the teeth. So part one is, that's part one. But
hmm
then part two is folding the corners in and feeling as though the modiolus, which is that bunch of little muscles here, are pushing in from the sides against the mouthpiece. And something I learned, Jose Franch Ballester did a Zoom session with some of my Orchestra of the Americas students about 2 years ago. And he mentioned something that I think is very important, which I had neglected in my teaching for 60 some years, and that is, don't forget about the cheeks. The cheeks have to be involved with that particular, it's not just the corners of the mouth, but it's also the cheeks. And everyone knows that you should not puff your cheeks when you play the clarinet, but I found that if I started thinking more of the cheeks being involved in that inward
hmm
motion, that helped a lot.
Great. Okay, I have another question if that's okay.
It's okay.
And it has to do with articulation. Okay, so I'm assuming that you might go into this more next, but the most valuable thing as far as the tonguing exercises that you hand wrote for me several years ago, when I was your student, what is the staccato style? Teaching people basically stopped staccato, which you showed in the first example somewhat, where the tongue was on the reed and then off the reed, and that is extremely valuable. And it seems like a concept that a lot of my students who are moving into college have not understood, and it's a hard concept for students to fully, put the air behind the tongue between notes. So I use your method of doing that, and I think it would be helpful for you to talk about that some, if possible.
Okay, well, I don't think, Julianne, you don't even need to pull up the page. The next thing on the tongue page is instead of tenuto tongue, staccato tongue, and you achieve it by putting your tongue on the reed, and it stays on the reed most of the time rather than off the reed most of the time. And I find that when you're teaching staccato, it's best to emphasize playing piano. The softer you play, the easier it is, because while your tongue is on the reed, you're sort of backing up the air. I keep looking down at my computer. I should be looking up at, hello everybody. You want to be putting your tongue back on the reed and stopping the reed with as little pressure. You don't want to press the reed against the mouth, you just want to touch it. So, and the staccato exercise needs to be faster than the tenuto exercise, because if your tongue is on the reed too long, it just gets backed up and it doesn't feel normal and natural, because this tonguing technique is used only when you play fast. You don't use it when you play slow. So you take that exercise that I just did, you speed it up, and then you can alternate it with tenuto tongue. And then at some point I'll also get into what I call the breath lift, which is stopping a note with your air rather than with your tongue. And I think this is a good time, Julianne, for me to go to that Rose study that I mentioned to you earlier on. I went to my library yesterday and found in the Rose 40, it's number 7 in the Rose 40. And this is an example. I'm choosing it because it shows tenuto tongue and staccato tongue, and it also shows a technique that we haven't talked about yet today, which is the air lift, stopping a note with your air rather than stopping it with your tongue. So if you can find that, Julianne, that would be great, and put it up on the screen. Number 7 from Rose
7.
40.
Okay, I'm finding it. Give me just a second. Number 7. There we go. Hopefully this is the correct one. Can we all see that?
That's it, yeah.
That's
a big number 7. The biggest number 7 I've ever seen. All right, so the first 2 measures are tenuto tongue, exactly the same technique that we just used. So in the first 2 measures, here's what the tongue is doing. That's what it's doing. In the third measure, it starts stopping the notes with the tongue, and one of Mr. Hasty's axioms was that if you have 2 notes slurred followed by a staccato note, you would stop that second slurred note with your tongue. So in the third bar, that's somewhat exaggerated. I'll play it faster in just a minute. Now I just arrived at an F sharp with a rest after it, and in this edition someone has put a breath in there. I'm not likely to breathe there because I haven't run out of air yet, and even if I don't breathe, I want to stop my air, because if I stop that downbeat F sharp with my tongue, it will be overly dry. I don't want to play, but rather, and that's a physical skill, learning to stop your air so that a note sounds short but doesn't sound dry by putting the tongue on it. And then from that point on, it's all tenuto tonguing. I'll play the first phrase for you. And I saw the breath there and I took the breath. But that's how you integrate tenuto tongue and staccato tongue in the context of this etude, a zillion other etudes, and of course your Weber concertos and whatever. You know what I'd like to do next to continue this, and we can go to another topic. What's our time? I took my watch off.
We're at 1227.
So we're almost halfway there. I'd like to go to page 112 in the text, 116 on the left-hand column, the Blue Danube. Because this is, again, it's a simple tune that lots of people know. Many people, myself included, consider it to be the best waltz ever written, which is why it's so famous and so popular. And it alternates slurring and tonguing. And then look at those staccato notes in the second, third, fourth bar. I don't want to stop those with my tongue because that will make them too dry. I'll show you what they sound like if I stop them with my tongue. Too dry. So what I want to do is to put a little puff of air for each of those notes, start it with the tongue and stop it with the air, but keep it short. Etc. And that skill of playing one note short and stopping it with your breath is not easy. It's easier when you play softly, but for example, in a Brahms symphony or some Tchaikovsky symphony, if you're in a tutti passage and you have one short fortissimo note that you want to have resonant and not stopped and dry, you have to start the note with your tongue and stop it with the air and make it very short. Close your ears, I'm going to play a loud note for you. Those are very short, but I'm not stopping them with my tongue. It's that very quick puff of air. Okay, I think that's good. Shall we move on to another topic? What was our second topic? I don't remember.
Flashy fingers, flambe.
Okay, flashy fingers. This is where I'll need some help from my resident keyboard artist. When you start a student playing faster, I feel strongly that you need to give them a finite group of notes to play. I wouldn't start a student on a page that looks like a rose study where they're playing fast, 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 fast all the way through, because our brains are not accustomed to that. I have a way of practicing that I call the credit card method. The credit card method is this. Look at your credit card. You've got 16 digits there, but they're not all 16 in a row. They're divided into 4 plus 4 plus 4. That's because our human brain can grasp 4 digits at a time, but we can't grasp 16 digits at a time. So I've come up with some studies and little pieces that I've written too, where we start playing faster, but we have, in fact, 4 notes to begin with. So let's begin, Leon, with...
Sprinting, perhaps?
No, let's begin with Sleigh Ride.
Sleigh Ride.
Yeah, Sleigh Ride. This is not Leroy Anderson's Sleigh Ride. This is Michael Webster's Sleigh Ride. And I often write a piano accompaniment to a little exercise or tune because it makes it harmonically interesting. And I want a student of the clarinet to be hearing harmonies and listening to the difference between major and minor from the very beginning. So I'm going to interrupt myself and just say, when students are learning the left hand, I like for them very soon to learn F sharp. And I like to teach E flat with the fork fingering, because their small fingers can deal with that pretty well. And I also like to teach A while I'm still holding the clarinet with my hand rather than balancing it on my thumb. So they have the option in the left hand of playing or and that way you can actually hear the difference between major and minor. If you play C major in the left hand and then D minor in the left hand, you don't really hear the difference between major and minor. So here we have Sleigh Ride, where the student has now learned how to play with the right hand. The student has learned a couple of accidentals, B natural, C sharp, and is starting to play a little bit faster. So what do? We give them 4 notes, no more than 4 notes, just to play. And you look at that first bar and you say, I have the quarter note in which to plan the 4/16ths. And then I have another quarter note into which to plan the next 4/16ths, and so on and so on. And the end result is that they can play pretty quickly, pretty soon, because they have enough time to think about 4 notes at a time. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Sleigh Ride. And I have one other that I'd like to do right away. This one is called sprinting. I have one called running and jumping. We're going to skip over that today, but we're going to go to sprinting. And this is in the turbo scan. There, oh, you've got it. Julianne is a master of this stuff. Okay, now here's what this one accomplishes. We start with the 4 notes. Scroll down a little bit, Julianne, so they can see. Then at the last measure of that bar, we add 2 more notes. So they're now in an American Express credit card rather than a Visa or a MasterCard, 6 notes. And then the whole second page has 6 note patterns, all in scales. And by the way, never crossing the break. Don't have them cross the break when they're playing fast notes at the beginning. That comes a little bit later. So here we are, sprinting. Oh, thank you, Julianne. She gave me applause. We accomplished that. Thank you, Leon. And this makes me want to go to the grace note exercise that's in the turbo scan. It's probably the last page, Julianne. A technique, while she's finding it, a technique that the wonderful string pedagogue Elizabeth Green pioneered is, it's the da rhythm. Instead of trying to play da 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 da, you go dum ba dum ba dum and da 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 da. The idea being that you think of 2 notes at a time. And probably 60 years ago, I came up with this exercise to practice 2 notes quickly. Now remember that it's important for the fingers to stay light on the clarinet, but it's also important for them to seal the holes. So there has to be a certain degree of, I guess I'll use the word pressure, but it has to stay light. On the other hand, if you don't seal the hole, it doesn't happen. And if you're playing very, very fast, you have to seal the holes immediately. So I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and instead of using the notes that are there, E, F, which is one finger, this would be like the easiest one, I'm going to use the notes C sharp and D sharp in the low register. So we get a slightly more difficult interval to do. And C sharp, D sharp involves opposite motion of the fingers. Left hand goes down while the right hand goes up, and vice versa. And I've chosen it also because when you establish your hand position on the clarinet, for a large number of people, not every single person it works very well to approach the clarinet from the rear, curve the fingers over the instrument, and when it comes to the pinky, I see one of the frequent problems is pinky's up in the air. The pinky goes like this. If you can learn to curl your pinky in to the C sharp key, and then when you lift it, don't lift it any higher than the index finger. Now I'm going to go toward C sharp, D sharp, but I'm going to start by practicing the hands separately. Here's the exercise, not exactly as it's printed on your page, but yeah, you can pull the page up again if you wish, Julianne. I'm not playing what's on the page, but the page gives you an idea of what it's all about. So I start with left hand going. Making the grace note as short as possible and as clean as possible. Then I do it in the opposite direction. Now when I do it in the opposite direction, I have to make sure that the grace note on the bottom, that the ring finger covers the hole instantly and then bounces up. Then I would do the same thing with E flat, etc. And then I put the two hands together, maybe playing it slowly a couple of times, and then seeing if I can put the upward motion of the left hand and the downward motion of the right hand together as fast as possible. And what you don't see on the page is and I'll redo this page maybe in my next lifetime, the next step would be just a quick group of notes, like the 4 notes. So we have, and we do them fast. Whoops, I missed that one. And then you gradually add notes, so you're playing 8 notes, 16 notes, or whatever. And then a very wonderful challenge that really requires control of the fingers. This one is on the 4th line of what you see, is actually changing the direction in the middle. So you'll tongue one repeated note and go in the other direction. I'll do it slowly to begin with. And then we try to go faster, etc., etc. Now, what's the fastest piece I can think of? The fastest piece I can think of is Capriccio Espagnol, C major arpeggio, up the way. Now, what's important in that? The most important thing is getting the fingers to cover when you cross from open G to C. If that doesn't happen, then the rest of the arpeggio is missing. So, flashy fingers. And if that C speaks, then the rest of it will speak. And for that to happen, the fingers have to have this nice combination of sealing the holes, enough pressure to seal the holes, but lightness so they can move quickly. Okay, I think I'm done with that topic. Yes, I am. We had one more. What was the third?
Partials to partials.
Partial to partials, yes. Leona, I'll need you soon.
Okay.
Find page 42 of the text, which is page 46 over the left. And this starts with the typical way that we teach upper register for a beginning clarinetist. And I believe that it's important, and there's one of my cute little graphics teaching what the word oct means. Octave means 8. A stop sign has 8 sides, and an octopus has 8 legs. And then we move down, just scroll a tiny little bit, and there you can see that when you press down the register of the clarinet, you are surprised. Everyone is surprised if they don't know what to expect, because they're going to expect it to go up an octave, but it goes up a 12th. And I like to stress that when you push down the register key, playing middle C, and go up the 12th, you're actually duplicating the right hand of the clarinet. I think of the left hand as being a 5-note scale, open down to middle C, and the right hand as being another 5-note scale, starting on C and going down to the bottom of the instrument. The difference is that we use the left hand to close a hole, but we don't use the left thumb to close a hole. So in that sense, the first finger of the right hand corresponds with the thumb of the left hand. So here's left hand 5 notes. Here's right hand 5 notes. And we can go down the left hand and then push down the octave key, the register key. And there you have it. Now if you'll scroll just a little bit farther, Julianne, we have the typical way. Everyone starts the upper register this way. I think C is the best note to do it, and do it in the right hand first, because if you start going up above G, then we get into the grunt factor, and that's something we want to delay for a while. We want the student to be very comfortable going up to G without worrying about grunting, and then later going up from G up to high C. And then keep scrolling, please. And there you see another example of what I just played. So let's make some music, shall we?
Is this limping?
We're going to go to limping, which is the very next page.
Okay.
And here's this limping combines 2 things. It combines crossing the register, which I think is automatic. You push down the register key and it happens. You don't have to tell somebody to do anything with their throat or their embouchure or anything. But I do believe that starting, I call it third partial registers, the clarion register, rather early is important if you stay in the right hand, because that encourages or even forces the embouchure to stay firm. And you may need a slightly stronger reed to play in that register. It's not such a good idea to be in the low register for several months before you go into the upper register. And then this combines that with placing the fingers of the right hand down, combining them with the register key, and going slow enough that the hole gets sealed. We're sealing the holes with the right hand. So here we go. Their introduction also to 5/4 meter, which is why it's called limping. Okay, ready? And I've also noticed during my 63 years of teaching that last octave, C to C, is very likely for the right hand to beat the register key, to come down before the register key does, and you get this. I can't even do it wrong. There, I did it wrong. Yes, and this exercise helps that, because you think of slowing down the right hand and sealing the hole rather than forcing it down. Okay, and then the next one.
Let's see.
This one is called strolling.
Yes.
Notice again that we're not trying to go across the register scale-wise yet. We're just practicing upward 12ths. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Next, page, we have to go quite a few pages away. This is page 125, on the left 121. This one is called connecting registers. Many teachers now believe what I do, which is that when you're going to cross the break, it's better to start going down than it is going up. Because it's really hard for a student who has learned how to play up to A to put all the fingers down and seal all the holes. But if you have learned how to play, if you learn how to play that, you play B, and it's not so hard to go from B to A. I've accumulated some gunk on my reed, so give me 20 seconds to...
Gunk? I don't think flutists ever have any gunk.
Let's call it condensation, shall we?
Oh, okay. All right. Yes, we do have that. So this tune is called Connecting Registers.
It is. And notice that in the tune we go up by a 12th mostly. In bar 8 we go up by a 6th from an open G. And so that would be their biggest challenge in this one. But then we go down across the register using several different note patterns. And I made a mistake. Guess what? I'm still alive. I don't believe that we should teach our students to avoid mistakes. What we should teach them is to avoid repeating mistakes. Because if you never try something, you won't make you will make a mistake. But if you make the same mistake 2 or 3 times in a row, then you're establishing a bad habit, and we don't want that to happen. And now on 2 pages hence, we have Connecting Downward. It's page 123, yes. And so here we start, this is without piano, but we start with going down several different patterns. Etc. And now we're ready to go back and forth. And again, it is far easier to keep the right hand down when you're playing throat A or throat B flat, and that's how I recommend that you start. You start not by playing A, but you start by playing C, and then you leave your right hand down while you rock back and forth to A. And meanwhile, much earlier on, we have taught them in their 3rd lesson how to play. So they're very familiar with getting to A from notes in the left hand. And conveniently, we can leave any number of fingers down in the right hand. It works really well. I can do the same on B, the same on D, the same on E. And then the student is ready to move on. Okay, what's our time?
You have 10 minutes?
10 minutes. Leon and I have a concert to give you at the end of this session. It's going to take 2 or maybe maximum 3 minutes. It's one that she wants to do today. But perhaps before we give you our little concert, maybe we can open the floor to any questions anybody has or any comments.
You could raise your hand or just unmute and speak out. I see.
I hate being the person who asks questions, or actually this is a comment that I was writing to you, Michael, but I'll go ahead and share it with everyone. As someone who also teaches woodwind pedagogy, a lot of the concepts that you're covering in your book would be great to institute in beginning band methods. And this is what I teach when we look at band methods, and we're like, maybe we wouldn't want to do this kind of ba, 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 kind of staccato to begin with, maybe legato exercises, etc. So, and a lot of this applies, the articulation stuff applies to other woodwinds and even brass instruments. And so I can see myself taking some of your exercises and musical examples and using them in my woodwind course and doing a little transposing, if you don't mind.
No, no,
So,
I don't mind.
yeah.
The problem is that the clarinet is the best instrument alive. And we have the best range. Yes, there's my flute playing wife there. But some of these are not transcribable. And for example, I have, there's a wonderful group of pieces called L'Organiste by César Franck. It's about 24 pieces meant for organ. And I've made a couple of them where you play the melody in the low register, you play the melody in the upper register, but you don't have to cross the break. And that would not work on an oboe, let's say, because the oboe doesn't have the range to do that. But I've thought of this being a band method, and I've sort of given up on the idea because I'm having enough trouble just finishing it as a clarinet method. But I think that's a great thought. We want to get our kids into learning how to blow the air without moving the jaw, without moving the jaw when they tongue, etc. Then learning how to modulate the air. Now, I would say that is the most important missing step in many clarinetist education, that they learn how to sustain the air and then they forget that they can actually make subtle crescendos and diminuendos for the phrasing. And you can't do that just by saying, I want to do it. You have to practice it.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so Leon and I are now ready to play for you my transcription of a wonderful intermezzo by our favorite composer, Johannes Brahms, who is our favorite composer, along with our other favorite composer, what was his name? Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And this is and by the way, we can thank Richard Mühlfeld not only for the 4 great late Brahms clarinet pieces, but also for inspiring Brahms to keep composing opus 116, 117, 118, and 119, some of the greatest short piano pieces ever written. And this is one of them. And you can see how when you find a composer writing a piece that happens to be easy to play, it's much better music than if I write a piece specifically for it to be easy to play. So this is my transcription where it's all in the lower register. It's F major. There are very few skips, lots of legato, and lots of opportunity to sustain the air. And that last chord is my homage to Brahms, where in the first movement of the E-flat sonata, he puts the clarinet on the bass. And the clarinet can do that, whereas the flute can't.
You're right. We cannot.
So anyway, I think I'm pretty much done. If we have 2 more minutes, we could take another question from someone other than Shannon. But everyone seems to be very shy this morning.
This is the way Zoom often is. I've found in years of teaching, a group is apt not to really offer things very much. I don't know what it is. I found myself acting the same way in Zooms. It's just a little strange. It's a different situation.
I do have a question just about the book, Michael. When are you projecting you'll have it available?
When I can get a publisher to publish it. That's,
Okay.
and if anybody who's listening has a great idea, I have a good idea, but it's not definite yet. And uh, by the way, what I've finished now, I sent 130 pages ish to uh, to Julianne. That's just the beginning. Uh, I have, for example, I'll give you one example. I've just started working on the next hunk, which is 24 pieces, recital pieces for early intermediate clarinet, not going above high C and using both the first and the third partials from composers like Granados, Mendelssohn, Edward McDowell, Amy Beach. They're all romantic, by the way, and they're all 2 or 3 pages long. They're quite easy to play, and they all have piano accompaniments. So there's a lot to be done, and I look forward to doing it. And if anybody here has any ideas to help me, I would appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Michael. This has been such a fun session and getting to see previews into your book. This is going to be a wonderful resource for us all. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yes. And
And
thank you all for being here. And again, urging everyone to consider joining ICA if you're not already a member. Just to throw that out there. And Michael, did you have anything else to share with us?
yes, when we start publishing, uh, just to make it clear, at the moment, if you want to go to the Jim Gillespie Library and get past issues of the Clarinet magazine, you
Yes.
have to be a member. But Julianne and Jessica have proposed that some of my articles be made available to the public at large, and we're going to do that. And I've selected 10 of them, and I will do a brief video with the help of Julianne to introduce each of them, and they'll be available. So that'll be fun and hopefully instructive.
And we'll have those out, as Jessica said, on the website soon. So thank you so much, Michael, for all of your contributions. And this was just so much fun. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.